morning goes to talk about the potential of the diaspora. When we talk about the diaspora, for me, I look at it from two options. Most people who spoke before me talked about the diaspora who's returning. I would like to focus on the diaspora who has no immediate interest of returning. I think when we talk about the diaspora dividend, we need to look at both options. There are those who are keen on coming back, and there are those who want to stay back in the diaspora and still contribute. One thing is clear, both love their country the same. It's just that the approach is different. And so I'll quickly go through my life as an example, because I think I serve as an example of a diaspora who get the opportunity to serve my country at the same time. So I was born in Ghana, moved to the States at the age of 14. I've been in the States for about 19 years now. I went to high school, university, most of my professional career, everything in the States. But one thing was very clear when I moved to the States. My affinity for Ghana remained, was seriously intact. I spent a lot of time. Then it was the dial-up internet, AOL. I don't know if most of you remember. I'll still go on the internet and read about Ghana. I'll go to Ghana where we had a discussion forum. We'll talk about everything from politics to sports. I'll listen to Tree News, especially because when you listen to Tree News, it gives you a sense of the true Ghanaian identity, the downtrodden, the ordinary person. I did all of that, and then when I went to university, I made sure my classes were mostly in the afternoon because of the time difference. So I can stay up late and listen to radio programs, political programs, and all of that. So I consciously developed myself and prepared myself because I knew I wanted to serve, even though I grew up mostly in the States. I knew I wanted to serve the government for Ghana. I just didn't know what capacity. So I was consciously preparing myself for it. So when this opportunity came, it was almost preparation meeting opportunity. So it was easy for me to transition into the role and then hit the ground running. And I think most people working closely with my minister, the Honorable Adjorlolo, the information, head of information falls under the Ministry of Information. So I work for the Minister of Information, working closely with him as well. We've been able to do exactly what you described, and we can do even more. The point that I'm making is that there was a potential that was carefully harnessed, this time by myself. But let's think about the numerous opportunities in the States, and if the government is making a conscious effort to develop them. We talk about diaspora dividend, but we need to talk about the role of the government consciously and strategically developing people in the diaspora. When you look at the Constitution, it's very clear who a Ghanaian is. A Ghanaian is a person born in or outside of Ghana, two at least, than one Ghanaian parent or one Ghanaian grandparent at the time of birth. Essentially, what that means, at the time of birth, had one grandparent who was a Ghanaian. So they are technically Ghanaian. So any effort you put in to develop our talent here must be equally channeled to build the same talent in the United States, in London, elsewhere.
Can I defend by saying you want 3 years teachers also in the US?
Oh. Well, I got free education in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just proceed with it. But could you sensitize more to the potential of the diaspora and how it fits into Ghana's development?
Right, and I was coming there. The point that I was making is that, when you speak of the potential, if when I was going to school, most of my Chinese friends, it's almost like it was a strategy. They were going into specific courses, engineering, mathematics, and all these things. And then they go back and give back in numerous ways. So we first have to take interest in what Ghanaians are learning and the skills they are developing back home. Because we can't just go and take the potential. We have to be part of building that potential. That's the first point that I want to make. Now let's assume that we've done that. Let me just give a few examples of how we can glean the diasporan dividend, focusing on the diasporan who doesn't want to come back here. I will speak from the point of view as someone who works at the embassy. We have Ghanaians who are in high places, from Wall Street, from Ghanaians who are presidents of universities, Ghanaians who are in top senior executives in Fortune 500 companies. I used to work for an insurance company, a $6 billion insurance company, as a workforce intelligence. And one of the senior executives, George Dadzie, a Ghanaian. My point is, we need to tap into that. So we can set up a board of advisory of these high-level talented people who don't necessarily want to come back here, to at least advise the ambassador on what places to go, where the monies are hiding, where the resources are hiding, where the networks are. Because of time, I'll move on very quickly. When you come to the embassy, we have a trade officer. But the United States, for those who know, is a continent. Coast to coast is over 3,000 miles. So when you send one trade officer, you can definitely go ahead and send one trade officer. But there are extremely talented people in the United States who are Ghanaians that you can hire to maybe zone up the country into 5 categories. IT, agriculture, this, that, and then hire these talented Ghanaians who live in the United States, who have worked in the United States, who have gained the experience to say support this trade officer. And even if it means we spend $2 million to pay them, but the IT person is bringing, let's say, $100 million of investment. This is bringing $200 million of investment. It's better than doing the normal way of, let's send one trade officer to a whole continent and gain very little.
So you actually propose a domino effect, a ripple effect.
A ripple effect of utilizing the talents in the United States. Internships, providing internships to young Ghanaians. Now COVID-19, in the unfortunate but fortunate circumstance, has made it clear that we live in a virtual space. People can sit in the United States, London, elsewhere, and be on board here.
Okay.
And advise. So I think when we talk about the diasporan dividend, we need to also look at those who are staying and look at how we want to benefit from the potential and the talents they also possess. And we do that by consciously coming up with strategies. Not just my example was just a random example of an opportunity came and then Kofi come and help. We can't rely on that. It needs to be conscious thing.
Okay. Kofi, I'll come back to you on another line of questioning, but we have speaking to us on doing business in Ghana, the journey so far, and challenges of diasporans in reintegrating in the Ghanaian economy. My very good friends Kofi, together with Dentaa, but let me just come to Christabel. Christabel, you actually fit in from where Kofi left off. You joined us this morning as an international development specialist. You have extensive experience working on economic development across Africa, Latin America, and whatnot. Your forte is in education, gender, agriculture, trade, social protection, and youth employment. I like one thing about your story. You returned in 2010 and you founded the Ahaspora Professionals Network, an organization which supports Ghanaian professionals who have lived and studied abroad and returned here to make a difference. Now, from 12 members in 2011, today you have about 2,000 and over. And one thing I want to really commend you for is that your platform has a mentoring program for high school students across Ghana by way of giving back. Now, you are a technocrat, just like you, but you're involved also in mentorship, giving back. Share with us how you pursue corporate excellence and achieve social change by giving back.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. When Kofi was speaking, I started thinking we need to create a class called Ghana on the Go and actually teach it in our schools. because the passion within which he broke down what Ghana is, how it's the center of the world, how it is placed and positioned, what it has, all in what, 10, 15 minutes? If every Ghanaian would be that proud of Ghana, I think it would go places. Be it whether you are in Ghana or in the diaspora and elsewhere. And I think if we come together in that notion, then we can really take it to the next level. So that's really where I want to start from. Once we build that patriotism, it's not as difficult. You know, the other pieces are building systems that will allow people to make an easier transition home. So it comes to organizations like what I'm doing, like what Dentaa and others are doing, like what the government is doing in the Office of Diaspora Affairs. But it starts from the person, like I did on June 1, 2010, and I know the date, and I'm sure many of us here know our return date. And when I was at the airport and the Kotoka air hits my face, that air that only we understand. You know you're home and home for a purpose. And mine, like the Minister of Foreign Affairs, was a one-way ticket, right? But what I did differently is I'm not a business person. I'm not a risk taker. So I didn't make that journey with nothing in hand. I made sure that I had a job already to come to. And I want to tell people that that's what you do. You define how it will make sense for you and for you alone. Because if you don't, then when that air hits your face, when you're particularly coming around January, February from the snow, you start wondering, okay, why am I here? Why did I do this? And how am I going to cope? But if you have a definition for why you were back, and it's centered around that patriotism that some of us learned from our grandparents and more, then you will make that journey and you will stay. To add to what Kofi was saying, he talked about the Ghanaian who has returned. He talked also about the Ghanaian who has stayed. Then there's also the people of African descent who have returned home. So I want to just make sure that we tie all the constituents and the other people who naturalized as Ghanaians. There's a role for every one of us, including for me, our biggest resource, which is those who have stayed and have never left. Because they have fought the fight, they have dealt with the issues, they have set the space for us, and then we can come and contribute our quota. So if we can see it as that trajectory of people, and almost envision it as a value chain where everybody has a role to play in business, in jobs, in development, then I think that we're really onto something that can really center us, Ghana as truly the center of the world, not just by words, but by actions and by how we set up our systems. What you asked me to do was talk about give back, which is something I'm super passionate about. When I moved home on the plane in 2010, really, I had a little dream, I think, as I passed out on the long journey. And in that dream, I thought, how nice would it be? And on June 1st, I made the journey. But I was really the only one that I knew on that plane. Fast forward to arriving in Ghana, this was a little bit after the economic downturn in the US. So a whole bunch of young professionals were forced to come back home, which turned into a lesson. And I want to say a lot of these crises do turn into lessons, like we're even seeing with this whole COVID-19 pandemic situation. When I came home, we had a lot of conversations. Naturally, I gravitated towards people like me who had returned, particularly from the US. A lot of them were friends, would complain about the same things. We had the same frustrations. We had the same two-known mindset. And we really wanted to change our country. That was one defining part in different ways. Interestingly, I was the development person amongst a whole bunch of finance, investment banking, telco type private sector people. And so in our conversations, one day I decided that we should think about how we can put it all together. And I realized from my own family setting that my brother came home, found a support system, created Ground Cash Solutions, and today has been home for 2 decades. My sister came from the UK, worked a little bit with Ashesi University at the foundation of it. She's a computer science engineer, but didn't stay. After 3 years, she went back to the UK, and I'm not sure she will ever come back to stay. What was the missing gap, in my opinion? It was a support system. And so I decided that if we all come together as a critical force with the same mindset, we can do something big, and that is how come Ahaspora was formed. But at the center of all of that was the idea to give back, because I find it that if you've gone abroad, you become a new person, which by the way, it took me a little bit to embrace that person. Because once I came home, sometimes I found myself apologizing a lot for having an accent, for speaking too fast, for complaining about the fact that if I pay my bills, the electricity should stay on, right? And I would write it in blogs, and those who had returned would be really excited about my story, and those who had stayed would be very angry. You know, you gone and when you stay here, you come and you want to expose Ghana negatively. Absolutely not. We all come from a place where we love our country so deeply that all we want is for things to work. And so we embrace it from different angles, and I think every angle is accurate, right? So with that, we decided that what will really define us is to create a mentoring program, not in academics, because we know on the academics you can learn from a school setting, but to pick on what it is that we do best, which is professional development, career coaching, the whole idea around work ethic, time management. I always tell people that as soon as I find myself going to events late, I need to get back on that plane, go and regroup and come right back. Because there are things that we learned out there that are important to how we can define our country's development. And so what we did create was a mentoring program now running on its 7th year, that every December brings together 100 high school students, and we expose them to people like Kofi, to the finance minister, to Dentaa has been a mentor before in talking to our students, but inspire them around a theme like integrity, like excellence, like responsibility. Because what we do want to do is what I said at the onset, which is and the American can tell you so passionately why America is the best place on earth. We've lived there, and we can question that. But they embrace it, not because they just embrace it, but because it's said to them. They're playing hockey in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and they call it the World Cup. And they believe it's the World Cup. You know, and that is what we need, is that mindset, that really, that you can't take it away from me. I'm a Ghanaian, true and true. But the way to do that is to mentor the next generation, what we try to do as Ahaspora. So let me stop here. Thank you.
Brilliant. Wow. If you're just tuning in, it is the biggest conversation on creating connections, building Ghana together. It is the first of its kind by candidates of GIDC. Just going by remarks from my friend, Mr. Kofi Tonto. He's the head of information and public affairs at the Embassy of Ghana in the USA. And Christabel has just made some very great remarks. Now, if I'm just retiring both of you, now Kofi talks about the role of governments in developing the diaspora by, investing in talents, and potential, abilities. Now you go a step further by saying that we should recognize an entire value chain of the various players, and you stress on the need for us to imbibe the culture of giving back, using our expertise to create patriotic Ghanaians. Let me come back to your little Christabel. What have been the challenges in integrating or integrating?
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of it is really, if you pay your bills, you should be able to get what you paid for. And I think for a lot of us, we got comfortable in the Western world, where we knew that all we needed to do was take that credit card, which is not necessarily a good thing, but we did it anyways, and you make the bill payments, and once you do, you will get what you need. The Ghana I see and love and would like to see further is on so many different fronts. People will tell you, and it's much better. I have seen a lot of progress in some of these, but people will tell you, for example, if I want to open a business, where is that one place when I'm sitting in Australia that I will go to and I'll click and there's an FAQ that gives me all the responses that I do have. And I know agencies like GIPC are doing really better to put that information out there. We could go on in different ways, but I think if we can fix access to information, a lot of the work has been done. Culturally, we try to hide things. I don't necessarily know why, but I think we should know amongst ourselves. We will go out together. They say that there's a lot of room at the top, right? And so we should make sure that we can make that access for information available on government side, within the private sector side, and then that should be a good start.
Access to information directly. Kofi, you are not here, so I'm asking you. Christabel, you've clearly nailed it over there. Now, what of a woman who shuttles? I mean, this woman is a defining force of nature. Then someone needs very little introduction. The CD is as long as Mr. Diana's wedding trade. But she joins us today as the founder and CEO of Expo, the Guba Foundation, Guba Careers, Guba Diaspora, Guba Health. Madam Dentaa Amoateng is dedicated and altruistic, and she's positively influenced many through her work with the Guba enterprise. Now, the Guba Awards has been recognized as a community-building organization with substantial influence. Her work to improve UK African relations ended an MBE in Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's 2016 birthday honors, and I can go on and on. But at that time, you certainly have established a lot down here and around the world. Tell us, what have been the challenges? What have been, all the obstacles in really this work?
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Okay, when Marina told me about this topic, I was like, promote Ghana as much as possible. But then I was thinking, you know what, if we don't talk about the challenges, we can't fix them. But in every challenge, there's an opportunity for the diasporans, okay? So that's something that you should know. So I'm going to list some of the challenges. One, because when I say a challenge that you know hits your heart, just go like this. Because there are a lot of challenges that we go through. Okay. So the first one is the cultural shock. Okay? Are you clicking? Yeah. The cultural shock. One, I think it's important to know for people who are looking to come down, is that it's not like when you come down for a Christmas holiday. Okay? It's not that 2 weeks holiday where you come with your £1,000 or your £500 and you go out and you have a good time. When you are looking to stay, you then realize actually how expensive things are. Yeah? Are you clicking? And then number 2, work ethic. You find that talent is hard to find. Talent is really hard to find in Ghana. I know that from some of the conversations that I've had in my interviews, people in the neighboring countries that kind of help them. They feel like Ghanaians are too laid back. And even when you try to teach them, they still repeat the same mistakes. And then there's the family societal expectations. That means the money is in your pocket. So you find that actually, where you want to build your business, you find that family members want you to build their business as well. And so the Amoateng factor of us coming from abroad means that we've got a lot of money. Where do you actually look for jobs? You know, in the UK, there's a job centre. You can go in the job centre and you have a list of places that you can go into. Also, we touched on business. The landowner is actually not the landowner, that the owner of the land has come back. And so now we're going to have to start all this again. So, these are things that they need to be dealt with. And it needs to be taken very, very seriously, because a lot of people have invested in land, have built land, and then are being told that they can't build, and land guards issues and all sorts of issues. These are things that are a put off sometimes. Paper system in Ghana, the lack of cohesion of some of the institutions, the Registrar General, NIT, GRA, no one's really talking, they're very broken up. Access to indefinite accurate information, And again, you know, looking at connecting the social, cultural, and emotional strings to doing business in Ghana. People get offended when you ask for receipts, for instance. When you're like, I need a receipt, but they don't understand. Again, I'm going to go back to the land issue where my husband's paid something for with one of the land people at the ministry, and he's like, can I have a receipt? And he's looking at me like, he's the widow. Why are you asking for a receipt? But it's like, you need the receipt. People get very offended by that. But it's something that obviously it's normal for us to get a receipt, right? So these are some of the things that are a put off. But on the flip side, okay, on the flip side, can I just say that in the UK, you won't get somebody that's waiting at the bank for you to go and get money. When it's 5 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock, they're closed. But in Ghana, your personal banker will be waiting for you if you need money. Okay? Number 2, if your car breaks down in the UK, you're on your own. Ghana, you will find people that will come and help you when you fall in the gutter. They will pick it up for you. In the UK, when it's freezing, yeah, and you want to get out of the car and go to the filling station, Ghana, there's something there that will put the petrol in your tank. So remember, although there are negatives, guys, there's a lot of positives. And so let's try and balance it out. We do need the government to put the structures in place for what I need to come back home. Because look, I know I keep saying there's not everybody is going to come back home, but all of us can invest. So there's opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so gradually we feed into the man who's seen it all. Kofi Anku is a shareholder and a board member of the Mensah Park, the vibrant 200 units townhouse community. As executive director of the Ports of Ghana, Kofi pioneered Ghana's largest commercial scale tomato greenhouse. Kofi serves on the board of advisors of the Right to Dream Football Academy and the board of directors of the Ghana Wildlife Society. Kofi,
talk to that warm introduction. I'd like to say thank you to my friend and mentor, Mr. Kofi Grant, and his amazing team at the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. And also I'd like to say thank you to the Beyond the Return Secretariat for their incredible work. So I'd like to begin also by talking about the role of the diaspora, specifically the historical diaspora, those that do not have an immediate link to Ghana. So if we look at Mensah Park, it stands as a testament to the power of collaboration between folks from the historical diaspora and those of us in business here in Ghana. My partners with this development, it's a company called Black Iron, and it was pioneered, and it's headed by a woman named Cheryl Mills, who's an African-American visionary, I would say. And not only is Black Ivy active in residential real estate, but also pushing the boundaries in healthcare. And I saw your video recently. So they've built an incredible facility in East Legon, and they're active as well in the western region in building an industrial park called West Park. So the historical diaspora represents a huge opportunity for Ghana. And I think it's important to highlight some of the activities that they're involved in. And even just mention a few more names of folks. I think that a lot of times we're reflecting on the year of return, and we're looking at the numbers of who in. That the real impact is not simply renting hotel rooms to folks that are historically linked to the transatlantic slave trade, but to engage in a really deep and meaningful way. And we're seeing that already happen. We're seeing folks like Dana B, who's based in New York, who's African American, who's raising a $100 million fund focused on West Africa, particularly medium and small scale agriculture. We also have Sheree Robinson, who's raised, I think, around $2 million for Tastemakers Africa, which is a travel tech application. She's doing extraordinary work driving tourism dollars into this region. And she's not just a Ghana, but I also want to mention Renee Never. I was a high school student in Vermont when Renee walked in, and she was very close with the head of our school, and said she was coming to Kofi to found an institute. I hadn't been to Ghana in about 10 years. I booked a flight that month and joined her at Kofi. So she's been an incredible inspiration. So the point being, not only do we have African Americans engaged in a serious way, but seeing a government who's signaling to a community that's been marginalized for literally 400 years, that not only are you embraced, but you're welcome at the highest level. It's so overwhelming as a kid who was raised in Ohio, for whom the Black American experience is essentially a proxy for an Canadian American there. To see the country open its arms to the entire global Black diaspora. And I think this is really going to be transformational. So I'd like to just highlight those areas and also say that we're also doing a lot of pioneering work in Ghana. Folks like Dentaa and Wadamaya and Vanessa Canby telling our own stories. And it's done with authenticity. And it's allowing those of us in business to essentially sidestep traditional media and identify and speak to our constituencies. African Americans, folks in the historical diaspora, also in the Caribbean, as well as Ghanaians who are in the diaspora. So if you're a Ghanaian in the diaspora and you see Steve Harvey and Beyonce's mother in your country, it piques your interest. What are they doing there? How can I get involved?
Brilliant. Now, Kofi, tell us, what's been the journey for you in establishing all that you've done?
The key ingredient has been time. I've been engaged in real estate Ghana for 20 years. And there are a lot of frustrations and there are a lot of challenges. I think everybody knows what they are. But this is a part of the world that rewards sustained engagement. I would say most people didn't know who I was maybe 2 years ago. The work happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And you just consistently have to execute. And eventually you're going to hit some breakthroughs and find some partners that can transform or take your business to a new stage in its growth.
There's one thing that runs through all your presentation. You all seem to be share with us.
I think it's the passion, and that's why I said the diasporan, the one who's coming, the one who's back home, who's back in the diaspora. There's one thing that's common. They all love their country the same. It's the passion. It's the love you have for your country. So no matter the challenges, the tribulations, you keep going. I've had numerous challenges. Some I can share, some I can't, based on confidential issues. But what keeps you going is that you want to do something for the nation. As I sit here, I have friends who ask me, what are you doing in Ghana? You're wasting time, you're doing this. And then sometimes you sit down and you really think about, is everything worth it? Is it really worth it? Job back home, you do your 9 to 5, you come back to electricity, you come back to this, good roads, all that, and then go back and just focus. But then we keep going. So for me, most of my colleagues here will attest to it, is the passion that keeps us going.
Christabel, is the same question for you too?
Yeah, but I think for me it's personal. My grandfather was the first director of public prosecutions in Ghana. And he was there at Independence, with Nkrumah, he was the peon, with Nkrumah and all these other people, studying at Dadzie, and Kofi. And so he would tell us stories when he was alive. As soon as we go to visit him in his house in Chile, he would tell us stories about things that he did at the time. And this is where that passion that I was mentioning comes from, is that somebody needs to tell you, just like right now, I'm trying to tell the next generation what it was about, because everything that I own, and I remember the stories, because he actually was in the belief I had that and all that. So it's also how you tell the story. And when you go abroad, and you bottom line is that you're a foreigner, it's different. I see America as my second home because I lived there for a long time in those places in Ghana. However, there is something to Ghana being home that you can't even define. Both of my maternal and paternal side actually before, it's like too much is given, much is expected. It's been for us. They did their part in the 60s. Their part, I think, economically focusing more on their families and internally. And then it's now our time to redefine all of those based on our predecessors, and then to make sure that we also take it to the next level. So I think that passion exists globally, but when it is internal, then it actually moves you. I mean, I could say that the world it's 3 full-time jobs, but I still wanted to do Ahaspora to make sure that I redefine the return and help people who are coming back from transition. And I'm sure for most of us, that's why we do what we do, even if you have the inside.
Wow. Okay. So it's passion, raw passion for somebody, but for some other person, so it's passion based on upbringing and influence. Dentaa, what has Ghana done for you? So that's for which reason you are so passionate and eternally optimistic.
I think we need to know this, okay? By 2040, Africa will have the larger workforce in China and India. By 2050, half the world's population will be. If you're serious about entrepreneurship. So the time is now. We can complain all we like, but sometimes when you come from the UK and you see where some of your friends have got to, you're like, wow, I'm still in a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom flat in the UK, and these people are moving forward. The time is going. Like, you need to jump on the bandwagon now. Lexi, look at you, what you've been able to achieve. Now open a restaurant. There are people that are doing stuff. When you look at the rain, people share their journey and their stories to encourage somebody that it is possible. Through all the challenges that I've listed, it is possible. We have Starbites. Eric was in the UK. He's got, nearly 10 or 15 branches of Starbites. Gold Coast was in the UK. Willie has moved back. He set up Gold Coast. He's doing well. He's not thinking. He said, even if you offer him 1 million, he won't go back to the UK. So if these things are happening, that should be an encouragement for all of you that it can and it will work.
Wow. Kofi, let me come to you. We have about 5 minutes to wrap up our conversation, and then we'll revert to you, our audience. The Beyond the Return is a very bold and ambitious campaign. It hinges on 2 legs: invest in Ghana and brand Ghana. For just 3 minutes each, let's walk through these concepts. What does brand Ghana mean to you, and how can we induce more investors in Ghana?
Jerry, I think it's just a question of telling our story. Amoateng spoke about Ghana as an idea. And I think if we dig into what that really means to the entire global diaspora, there's a part of the world where you could legitimately be a first-class citizen. And and enjoy all the fruits of that citizenship, it's so compelling, and it's the core of our country. If you look at Nkrumah's experience, Nkrumah had the good fortune of attending a black college in the US. The same is true for the first president of Nigeria. So his philosophy was informed by the thinking and writings of Du Bois, Marcus Garvey. So the centrality of historical diaspora, the Ghanaian story, I think resonates deeply, and it's important because if you look just even at Black America or the African American community, their net worth, right, or the revenue that they receive on an annual basis is 22 times the size of the GDP of Ghana. So it's not simply a question of tourism. These are people who are yearning for belonging and finding. So I think it's about rediscovering what we're truly about and reconnecting. And now we've got the tools to do that. I have folks that contact me on LinkedIn, Facebook, daily, and say, hey, look, I saw an interview you had on Shop Black, but that doesn't include how can I get to Ghana? And they're showing that the interview we did with Shop Black was shared 70,000 times on Facebook. And that's not Ghanaians. Those are Black Americans who are saying, how do we get involved in the story? Okay? So I think it's really about connecting all of these dots. So historical diaspora, the continental diaspora, and those of us that live and work in Ghana. When we align those three forces, this country will be unstoppable.
Kofi, let me come to you. What are your thoughts on that? Seeing that you are also in the business of selling Ghana to various publics in the US.
So for us, what we do is we sell hope. I'll give you an example. We have prisons, people in prison who reach out to us all the time.
Ghanaian prison or
No.
American?
Americans, African Americans, and they say that I'm supporting Ghana when I leave here. I want the first stop. I read about Ghana. I saw this about Ghana, and Ghana gives me hope. So I think we have a great asset, and what we try to do, anytime I work with the ambassador, and he tells me, Kofi, Ghana is a diamond, not a diamond team, and we are still polishing to it. Ghana is a diamond in the sand. We have to figure out how to polish it, and that's how people see Ghana. You'll be marveled when people talk about Ghana. And I'm like, so I think we need to constantly leverage the love, genuine love people already have for Ghana. The reason why the year of return was successful is because of that. Our history, our successes over a period of time, from music to sports. Don't forget about 2006, when we first went to the World Cup. It did so much for us, it's not even fun. So we need to revisit these examples and multiply them. And that's why I kept talking about consciously developing and devising strategies. And that's why I keep talking about the diaspora who's staying, because they are the agents. And I think someone spoke about how, I think it was Mr. Yofi, about how anytime an investment person comes in, they talk about a Ghanaian event and how they influence them. So we need to package hope and make sure we package the Ghanaian story, which is what we do. So anywhere the ambassador goes, he tells the Ghanaian story. He's a beautiful storyteller, uses examples and all of that. These are the things. Because when you talk about Brand Ghana, yes, we'll do the graphics, we'll do the TV stuff, we'll go to Wall Street recently in February, we went to Wall Street. I'm sure most of you saw the Ghana flag at Wall Street. We did all of that. We do all of that. The year of return, Akasi will tell you, we work closely with him and Annabelle and Ivy and all of them. But beyond that, we tell the Ghanaian story, the authentic Ghanaian story. And that's what attracts people.
Christabel, is that where your civics class comes in? Where we deliberately couch, these?
Absolutely, I think you have to start beyond, and that was one thing I wanted to mention, which is that even within our government and within the defining pieces where we're building policy, we need to engage the younger generation. Because I went to college in Ohio, middle of nowhere, and I remember one afternoon I was babysitting for one of my professors, and this little girl was standing in the hedge behind the house, staring at me, quite American child. So I go to her and I say, "Oh, what is wrong? You come and play with us, you know." And then she goes, "Have you always been this color?" This story I'm telling you is in 2002, so not that long ago. The issue is that there is still that negative perception of what Africa is, what Ghana is around the world. So fast forward to 2019, where Ghana was and is on CNN, on Al Jazeera, on BBC. Everybody may not know the entire continent, but everybody has Ghana on their lips. That is a proud moment that I think that we all need to really take in, but more so keep hitting at it. I remember 2010-ish when I came home, that was Ghana open for business was the mantra. And it was building up and then it kind of ended. So I think if we can institutionalize what we're doing now, such that 10 years from now we are still, that Mali can pick up, the South Africa can pick up, and let's leverage things like the African Free Trade Agreement to really embody this idea that one, Africa is not a country, it is a continent of amazing, different, diverse individuals with countries like Ghana that are really setting the pace globally. We have some of the best doctors in the world, you know. So why can't we leverage those pieces and put it all together? But it really starts from us at a very young age, wherever we are, deciding that even if we leave, we'll come back home. And just real quick to wrap up, I came home in 2010, but I left. And then I came back again in 2015. And it's given me a different perspective to that idea of coming home. Initially, it was that one-way ticket, and that is it. If you don't do that, then you're not doing it right. But what I found with my own story is that there is a space for everybody. Even if you want to come for pockets for a couple of years to do something, that's okay. Just make sure that you invest from afar, near, you stay connected. But let's all ensure that the year of return is never forgotten. It's written in our history books. And we keep the year of return, as we mentioned, beyond the return and further. Let's not make it about one government. It is a Ghana brand, a Ghana agenda, and we need to solidify it for the future.
Another point, institutionalizing initiatives. Now let me come to you, Dentaa. This really falls to you. You have established an institution. Guba is an institution. How can governments also institutionalize initiatives like the year of return and make it a brand?
I think, for me, I'm just even pleased that this event is happening, this conversation is happening. But I feel like also when we're having these conversations, we need to have everyone in the room. Because when we want to share the story, we need the right people to hear the story and turn it into action for us. Guba, started off as just an award ceremony and then grew on to Guba Expo, promoting making Ghana products into the UK market, Guba careers, etc. But I think the year of return, beyond the return, is a great initiative that really will keep calling people from the diaspora. And I think that we have a big role to play as people from the diaspora in terms of what we teach our kids in order to wear African print. And we need to be doing that. We need to be making sure that, no, it's not just about Friday wear Ghana. It should be every day. Absolutely. It should be every single day. Absolutely. And so I think these are things that we need to become more patriotic as a nation, we need to really love our country. Look, when things happen in the UK, they cover each other up. But in Ghana, when something happens, we tear each other down. And we put out the information for them to see. But actually, there's some information that as a country, we are family, we need to protect each other. So I think being more patriotic and just loving Ghana, we need to love our country.
Inclusion, broad-based engagements, and it will lead to patriotism and love for country. This is where we come to you, our audience, we to engage us. We will take 5 questions, comments, suggestions, after which we shall revert to the panel. Let me start with Madam here. Your name, your organization, and shoot to your question. Do we have mics? I'll let you know. Please feel free to direct your question or suggestion to any in particular.
Well, again, Sherry Thompson. The company is actually Global Resolve Africa. It's a consultancy, but I'm a little conglomerate in the making. There's so many other companies under that. Dentaa, thank you so much for your last comment.